All right, so now we are so happy to welcome Reverend Stephen for our guest lecturer, our sermonizer, and he's going to talk to us about Take Courage.
Thank you. Good morning. I like sermonizer. Never quite thought of it that way before. Welcome here. So, wow, that was a nice piece, by the way. Thank you for whoever picked that up. So, just a moment before I start, just take a look around. Take a look around. There are people here you know well, people here you don't know at all, people here you would disagree with on many things, and people you agree with on lots of things. And all of them are good people. So we're fortunate to be in a community of good people. Not everybody is. So my message this morning is called Take Courage. And I'm going to share some things from the Bible with you about that. And also just have you reflect for a moment on, have you noticed, whether it's on the world stage or the country stage or the local stage or your own life stage, have you noticed there's never any shortage of things to be upset about? And all the ecological preservation we worry about, that's not something we need to be worried about. There's plenty to be upset about whenever you want. Isn't there? Yeah. And plenty to be upset about when you don't want. So, in the face of these things, now, on the other side of that, by the way, whatever is going on, anywhere, in you or in anybody you care about or anywhere else, whatever is going on, is there not always no shortage of things to be grateful for? So we get to choose one of the great gifts of mankind that we hear about all the time in philosophies and religion and different things, is free will. We can choose. My dog can choose what he's going to do, but he can't choose how he feels about things. You can. And more importantly than that, no matter what you feel about things, you can choose how you're going to behave. You can feel badly and behave well. You don't have to behave badly because you feel badly. So, that's one of the things we teach our kids, don't we, as they grow up? So, this Take Courage thing is kind of universal. It's not addressed to any particular thing, but have you ever, maybe even today, but have you ever been at a time in your life where you felt like you needed courage to face something and didn't feel like you had it? That what you were facing was too hard, and you weren't sure you could get through it? Anybody ever felt that? Yes. And look, here you are. You got through it. Every single adversity, challenge, upset, threat, danger you have ever faced in your entire life, you have made it through. Every one. Here you are. Don't you think that's incredible? Given the frailty of human life and the suggestibility of our consciousness to things that we get exposed to that we don't want in our consciousness sometimes. And we made it through all of that. So I have every reason to believe we'll make it through whatever comes next. Personally, or on the global stage. Doesn't matter. The big stage is just a big stage, but we live out our life on a little stage. And what we do on the little stage matters to us and to everybody we know. So the take heart, I think, is an important thing to remember. And take courage. By the way, they're the same thing. Take heart and take courage is the same thing. Courage comes from the word cœur, which is French, and it means heart. So take courage means take heart, and vice versa. If you do any real Bible studies, or just read it every now and then, to remember there's a story there that has some good stuff in it, you'll see that phrase a lot. When angels appear, one of the things they always say is, don't be afraid, take courage, take heart. Jesus says to his apostles before he leaves, take courage. It's going to be okay. We're told that all the time. God tells that to the prophets he works with. We're told that all the time in the Bible, by angels, by God, by Yeshua, by Moses, by Joshua, you name it. So I came across a definition of courage that I like, and I thought I'd share it with you. Having the moral strength to persevere and the ability to withstand any danger, fear, or difficulty. The moral courage to persevere and to withstand any danger or fear or difficulty. To me, that kind of sums up courage. I like that definition. And I'm going to read you a few things from the Bible. So this is from Deuteronomy. Be strong and courageous, and do not be afraid, and do not dread them. The Lord your God is going with you, and he will never desert or abandon you. In all situations, at all times, under all conditions. Now that being, how many of you think that's probably true? Or how many of you believe it's true? Quite a few. Yeah. Does it always feel to you like it's true? No, probably not. Probably not. So if we let our feelings dictate our faith, we will suffer when there is no need to suffer. Because our feelings are reactive. They have no discerning capability whatsoever. None. They are reactive. They react to stimulus. They react positively or negatively, but they react. And then they change. Ever been in any emotional state, positive or negative, one you liked or one you didn't, ever been in any emotional state that never changed? Have you had certain things you believe that you still believe and you've believed for a really, really long time? Probably yes. Your emotions are not constant. Your faith can be. So the reality is, when we're told God goes with us in all situations and in all places and will not abandon us, that's a nice thing to believe, but we can get ourselves in plenty of situations where it doesn't feel like that. We're like, okay, where are you, God? Have you ever noticed that sometimes when you really, I'm just trying to be honest here, by the way. I'm not trying to be uplifting or inspiring. I'm trying to be truthful. And hopefully truth will be enough of an inspiration to get us over the hump. Have you ever noticed that when you are really upset about something, it's difficult to feel like God's in touch with you and paying attention to you? Do you think God went anywhere? But did your attention shift? Yes, it did. So, in those moments, have you ever been with somebody, let's say a child who's really afraid, or let's say a really dear friend who's grieving over some big loss in their life, and you're with them, and you want to comfort them and reassure them. What are the perfect words you can say to make it all okay? There aren't any. So what do? You hold them. You take their hand. You sit with them. And are silent. What do you think God does when you're suffering and afraid? We are made in that image and likeness. We behave like God. when you are so fearful or so distressed that words won't come for you, God doesn't use words. God uses presence. Don't miss that just because you're expecting words or you're expecting something dramatic to happen. Sometimes the most important thing in your life is an undramatic, quiet presence. Yeah? Amen. So, a couple more. This is from Joshua. Have we not been commanded to be strong and courageous? So I tell you, do not be terrified, for your God is with you wherever you go. So that's a theme you've kind of noticed by now. This is Jesus talking in the New Testament in John 16:33. I have spoken to you these things so that you can have the peace I have. So that we can have the peace he had. In the world, you will continue to have trouble. That's not something I want to hear, but there it is. In the world, you will continue to have trouble. But take courage. I have overcome the world. Now, what's not said there but implied, I believe, is this, and so can you. If you do what he did. So, I'm going to read you something from Daniel that you probably haven't heard or read, maybe ever, unless you've studied the prophets, or for a long time. But I think this is interesting. So, Daniel is a visionary prophet. He has a number of visual experiences. He encounters something called the Son of Man and the Ancient of Days. Those are two really big concepts in Jewish Christian mystical teachings. Son of Man, Ancient of Days. And they're really, really interesting, and I'm not going to tell you anything about them. You can look it up if you want to, because I'm going to move on to a different part. But it's a really fascinating part. So this is now the Lord, or an angel of the Lord, speaking to Daniel. I don't know if you've noticed, but sometimes in the Bible it says the Lord does this, and in a different translation of the same passage it says an angel of the Lord did this. One of the reasons is in ancient times they believed that every action God took was through the agency of angels. So whether God took the action directly or it happened by an angel, it was all God acting. So they believed that for God to act, he had to act through an agency of angels. He communicated through angels, he interacted with humankind through angels, he took actions of nature through angels, and so on. So this is either an angel of the Lord, or the Lord, however you look at it, speaking to Daniel. And I would like you to, when I read the word Daniel, not think Daniel. I'd like you to put your name in there, as if this is being said to you. Daniel, you who are most treasured, understand what I'm about to tell you. Stand in the place you have been sent. And when he spoke this to me, I began trembling. And he said to me, take courage, Daniel. Do not be afraid. From the first day you set your heart upon understanding me, on humbling yourself before God, your words have been heard, and I have come in response to that. And then this one with human appearance touched me, and I felt strengthened. And he said, Daniel, you who are most treasured, do not be afraid. Peace be upon you. Take heart. And when he spoke these words to me, I felt suddenly strengthened, and I said, my Lord, speak some more, because you are strengthening me. And he said, do you now understand why I came to you? So, we have some interesting clues there. And one of the first ones is, whether you feel like it or not, all Scripture is consistent upon this. God treasures you. He doesn't just think you're kind of okay. What do you think of Stephen? Man, he's all right, guys. He might be okay. We'll see. We'll see. He treasures you, for real. And listen to this. Stand in the place you're sent. You don't have to go far away to take a stand on things you believe in. How you take a stand on things you believe in is right where you are, right where you're put, right here. Right in your family, in your house, in your neighborhood, in your job. That's where you're sent. Some people are sent. They're sent out to do emissary work. They're sent out to be prophets. They're sent out to be healers. Some people play on a bigger stage than we do. They play on a statewide or national or international. Most of us don't. Doesn't matter. What matters is that we fulfill the roles we're given by being where we're supposed to be. And in case you wonder where you're supposed to be, take a look at where you're sitting. That's where you're supposed to be? Or you wouldn't be sitting there. All right. This is another clue. Since the day you first set your heart on understanding me, not on since the day you first set your heart on getting what you want. Not since you first set your heart on having power over people to make them do what you would like. Not since you first set your heart on getting rich and wealthy. Not since you first set your heart on indulging all your desires. When you first set your heart on understanding me. I know many of you, and you do have that desire to understand God. I don't know all of you, and maybe you don't have that. But you're here, so some part of you is longing for that. Right? Since the day you first set your heart on understanding me, here's the second part, and it's a really important one. And it's something, frankly, I struggle with. And on humbling yourself. On humbling yourself, not in front of other people. On humbling yourself before God. I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but when I have this, and it's, for me it's subtle. You know, the soul in me is nourished by my contact with the divine and my awareness of the divine. That nourishes my soul. Makes me feel happy, brings me peace, gives me enthusiasm about life. And once I start having this greater clarity and greater connection and greater awareness of this divine power working in me and through me, the more I have that, my little ego sneaks in there and goes, look at all this power you have. You're a child of God. You have power. And I start thinking, ooh, I have power? Wow, this is great. But the power that I'm having is not the power of God, and the me that's thinking that is not the soul. The soul isn't interested in power, it's interested in love. The ego is interested in power. And when I start thinking I'm the doer, look who I just healed, look who I just inspired, look who I just, whatever it was that I did and I think I'm so great at. Look at this song I wrote that everybody went, ooh, what a great song. As soon as I start letting that come, not that it's not going to be present, but when that starts eclipsing the soul, when it starts eclipsing the Christ in me, when the ego stands in front of me, instead of Christ standing in front of me. Do you understand what I'm saying? Then everything changes. And what happens is that something arises in my life that all of this smug spiritual arrogance that I have, I'm so much more enlightened than that group. We're the ones that really get this, not those guys. As soon as I have those attitudes, something happens in my life that just shatters that arrogance. And usually it's not very pleasant for me. And then I think, oh my God, why me? And then all of a sudden I go, oh yeah. Maybe Stephen should just take a little back seat to God for a while. How about that? I don't know if any of you are pilots, but in pilots, both military and commercial, if you're flying a two-person, a pilot and co-pilot aircraft, oftentimes the co-pilot, almost always, is less experienced, less hours in the air, And so often on flights, they're in charge of, they're doing actual flying to get more experience in it, but they're still under the command of the pilot or the captain of the aircraft. Until there's an emergency. If the co-pilot is flying the aircraft when an emergency occurs, the first thing that happens is the pilot says, "My aircraft." And the co-pilot acknowledges that by taking his hands off the wheels and going, "Your aircraft." And then the pilot deals with the emergency because they're the more skilled and experienced pilot. So, in my life, when I have a crisis where I need courage, where I'm afraid, where I'm not sure what to do, my immediate reaction is to grip the wheel harder and take control. And that's exactly the opposite of what I need to be doing. What I need to be doing is going, "Your aircraft. I don't know how to fly through this. I don't know how to do it." Willingness to let go is also courage. Isn't it? Yeah. So I think there's a clue here in terms of what we're really seeking. If we're really seeking understanding, if we're really seeking that spiritual presence of God in our life, and we're doing so humbly, then there's going to be a response. In this case, Daniel had this response of the Lord really very directly communicating with him, which is a powerful thing. Some of you have had that experience. It's a very powerful experience when you have that. If you haven't had it, and you will, because that's the path we're on, it's a powerful experience to really have a direct encounter like that. But whether it's direct or more indirect, there is, how do I want to put this? There's a Jewish story about, it's a long story, so all Jewish stories are long stories, in case you don't know. But there's a Jewish story about a man, a peasant, who had done great work in his village and helped people, was really a pillar of his village. And he was called to the king's palace to appear before the king. And he was scared. But he didn't have a choice. So he went to the palace and he was like knees shaking all the way. It's like, "Oh my God, what did I do wrong? What's going to happen to me? You know, I'm standing before the king, me." And so he's, really nervous. And when he gets there, he discovers that he's been called there because the king wants to honor him in front of all the people. When we have any anxiety in us about worthiness, it's that story. We feel like we're not worthy, and God is calling us to recognize our value. Not the ego value, but the value we have as His children, of living His teaching, of living His word, of living in His kingdom. So, there's this interesting dichotomy as a human being. The more we try to elevate ourselves, and the self we think of is the little me, Stephen, ego self, the worse our life goes. But the more I try to elevate the real self, which is the Christ in me, and bring that forward and let that come out, and let that be revealed, and let that guide my decisions, the better my life goes. I mean, it's not a magic panacea, but even when things don't go well, I go better. Do you understand what I'm saying? My life can go well. Everybody does well when their life goes the way they want. But when it doesn't, who does well? Not the people that are caught up in getting what they want. Letting go takes courage. And sometimes here, you will hear Wanda or me or somebody else up here, or somewhere else for that matter, you will hear somebody say things that stretch your beliefs a little. Or maybe like push on them a little. Like, wait a minute, maybe this one's not quite right. Letting go of your beliefs once you come to know something greater also takes courage. Because we have a lot of beliefs that lock us into limited consciousness.
Yep.
Don't we? A lot of beliefs about our own capacity, a lot of beliefs about each other, a lot of beliefs about... I remember very distinctly one time having this really difficult situation in my life and being upset and praying about it. But all the while I'm praying about it, thinking while I'm praying about it, this can't happen. Well, you know, God, nobody can fix this, even God. It's unfixable. I'll pray about it, but it's not going to work. You ever done that? Well, I have. And in that moment, I've heard God's voice a few times in my life, and it's always amazing. Well, this is what I heard, and what I heard was, do you really think I'm limited to what you can conceive? And the thing was magically, from my perspective, taken care of. So, what I'd like to do is just have you pause for a moment and think about things. We'll do this as a lead into the meditation, but just think for a moment about things in your life that are difficult for you, whatever they are, health challenges, financial challenges, relationship things, worry about the world, whatever it is that's really hard for you right now. All of us have places in us that are still wounded, whether it's a long time past wound or a current wound, or a fear of being wounded in the future. That's part of our human consciousness that the divine in us is trying to heal and deal with. So take a moment and look at those places in you where you feel like you could take heart and use some courage, and are not sure you can find it. And just recognize that in those very things that we struggle with, that we're unsure of, that we don't know if we can get through, in those very things is where the power of God is going to be demonstrated to us in an undeniable way. That's the opening for the Spirit of God to really come present and for us to see what it really is and what it really does within us. So as we hold to that, we also invite this desire to know God to really come alive in us. That little longing you may feel to know God turn into a huge longing in you. And allow that to be nurtured. Because that longing is always answered. And to be humble enough to receive it when it's given. And not insisting that it be revealed in the way you want or appear in the form you expect. Allow God to reveal itself to you how it chooses to reveal to you. So here's just a few things I'd like you to consider in this meditation moment. There is no moment more vital than this one right now. There is no space more crucial than the one in which you stand. And there is no act more powerful than the one you have just been empowered to do. This is the moment. This is the place through which you transform your world. So as we sit with that, I'm going to close with a very short, I'll call it a story, but it's something I heard a minister, fundamentalist minister, that I didn't agree with almost anything he said. But I heard him tell this story. And he said that had this person in his church that was really difficult for him and really struggled. And never broke through that struggle, never made peace with it, never reconciled with the person never reconciled with them. They were an adversary the whole time. And he began to pray to God to take this person away. Take him away, take him away, get him out of my church, take him away, get him out of my church, take him away. I can't deal with this. And nothing happened. And he prayed, and prayed, and prayed, and prayed, and prayed. The person kept showing up. And finally, after a long time of this, the minister said he literally got down on his knees one night and prayed again and said, at least tell me why you haven't done anything. Why haven't you answered my prayers? And this minister said that this was the first time he had ever actually literally heard the voice. And it said to him, I did do something about this. I trusted you to love them. That's our power. So let's use it well.